everybody, welcome back to the Sermon on the Mount series. Last week we learned that Jesus sat on a mountainside and thousands of people came to hear him talk. And he talked about things that the normal Pharisees and the teachers of the law didn't talk about. In fact, some of the things that he talked about seemed like the opposite of what they had heard in the past. And these things were called paradoxes, meaning at first they don't sound true, but when you really look deep into them, you find out they're true. We talked about the Beatitudes, where it said, blessed is somebody if something kind of bad is happening to them. For example, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. And blessed are the poor in spirit, because the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Usually if someone is poor or mourning, we think that we feel sorry for them. But Jesus was saying they're blessed. They're blessed by God. So the people that Jesus was talking to were the Israelites, God's chosen people, the people that Moses had given the 10 Commandments to. And the Jews thought that they were blessed by God because they followed the 10 Commandments and the laws. Remember the 10 Commandments about thou shalt not worship idols, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. They did all of those things. And they thought that's what made them good people. But Jesus kind of challenged that. In Matthew 5:17, Jesus said this, do not think that I have come to get rid of what is written in the law or in the prophets. I've not come to do this. Instead, I have come to fulfill what is written. Practice and teach these commands, and then you will be called important in the kingdom of heaven. Here is what I tell you. You must be more godly than the Pharisees, and if you're not, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. Well, now this was a big surprise to everybody that was sitting there on the mountain with him, because the Pharisees, they spent their whole lives trying to obey every law. And most of the people did not feel that they were up to the same standard as the Pharisees. And if they had to be better than the Pharisees, that was like impossible. And then Jesus went on to talk about the different laws in the 10 Commandments, such as the law, thou shalt not kill. And this is what he said in Matthew 22. You have heard what was said to people who lived long ago, do not commit murder, and anyone who murders will be judged for it. But here is what I tell you. Do not be angry with a brother or sister. Anyone who is angry with them will be judged. This was taking the law and moving it to a whole different level, a level of not just committing the act of murder, but the act of even thinking about it. Let me give you an example. God he cared about your motives and your attitudes as much as he cared about your actions. And here's an example. I want you to think about two kids that were fighting, okay? And they were calling each other names and they were just being really mean to each other. So the mom comes to this child and says, I want you to say something nice to your sister. And what the person says is, you look really nice today. Now, the actual words that the person used were nice, right? You look nice today. But the way that they said it, the attitude, the motive behind it was not right. And that's what Jesus was saying. Just because you follow the action, it matters what your attitude and your motive behind it is. So he talked about all the different commandments. He talked about adultery and divorce and promises and things like that. And then we're going to jump down to Matthew 5:43. And it says there, you've heard it said, an eye must be put out for an eye, and a tooth must be knocked out for a tooth. But here is what I tell you, do not fight against an evil person. Suppose someone slaps you on your right cheek, then turn your other cheek to them also. Suppose someone takes you to court to get your shirt, well, let them have your coat also. Suppose someone forces you to go 1 mile, go 2 miles with them. Give to the one who asks you for something, and don't turn away from the one who wants to borrow something from you. Those were really hard things. I mean, if somebody slaps you on this cheek, to turn your other cheek and let them slap you there too? That's a hard thing to ask. If it's not enough to just give somebody your shirt, you have to give them your coat too. You can't just walk with a person 1 mile. You have to go the extra mile with them. These were really hard things for these people to understand. But he goes on and says some even harder things. You've heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But here's what I tell you. Love your enemies. Pray for those who hurt you. And then you will be children of your Father who is in heaven. He causes the sun to shine on evil people and good people. He sends rain to those who do right and to those who don't. And if you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Even the tax collectors do that. If you greet only your own people, what more are you doing than others? Even people who are ungodly do that. So be perfect, just as your Father in heaven is perfect. So I have a little object lesson to kind of illustrate this for you. Let's pretend that this glass is your heart, okay? And I'm going to pour some water into the glass. The water illustrates God's love. We want our heart to be full of God's love, right? But now, let's imagine that somebody makes you really angry and you just really hate them. That just makes you so angry. The potato is like the hate that's in your heart. But look what happens when the hate goes into your heart. The love comes out and goes everywhere. Now, if you forgive that person, then you can take the hate out of your heart. But look, there's not that much love left in your heart because the hate filled it up. Two things cannot be in the same place at the same time. If you want your heart to be full of love, then you have to keep the hate out of your life. That is why God said to love your enemies, even people that do things bad for you, and to pray for those who persecute you. How do you do that? How do you love somebody? Well, one of the crafts that you have this week is a little rub-off craft, and it says love. And if you scratch on it, it's going to read for you 1 Corinthians 13. And so I would like to read that for you. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not want what belongs to others. It does not brag. It is not proud. It does not dishonor other people. It does not look out for its own interests. It does not easily become angry. It does not keep track of other people's wrongs. Love is not happy with evil, but it is full of joy when the truth is spoken. It always protects. It always trusts. It always hopes. It never gives up. Love never fails. So, for example, if someone is your enemy, love doesn't keep track of the wrong things that they do to you. Love is still kind to that person, even if they've been mean to you. Love never gives up on that person. Love is patient with that person. And that's the way that you love your enemies. We also have a craft this week that is, when Jesus was asked what the greatest commandment is, he said, "Thou shalt love the Lord your God with all your heart and love others as yourself." So you have a neat little sign here to remind you to love God and love others. And when it says love others, it doesn't mean just the people that are your friends. It means people that are not like you. It means people that maybe you don't like, but you still have to love them. And you have to treat them loving the way we just talked about. So I want you to think about that this week as you do your crafts. Is there somebody that has made you really, really angry? Somebody that you need to forgive? Someone that you need to still love, even if they've been mean to you? I want you to think about that this week. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you that you loved me when I was your enemy, that you died on the cross for me when I was still a sinner. You still loved me and you forgave me. And Lord, I pray that you will help me do the same thing with other people, Lord. Help me to forgive. Help me to love people who are not like me. And Lord, I pray for these kids as they go through this week that you will help them learn to love like you do. These things I pray in your name. Amen. I'll see you next week.